I could replace you in 24 hours. 5 words that nearly destroyed everything. When billionaire Victoria Kane spoke them to single father Ryan Mercer that rainy Seattle morning, she had no idea she was standing at the edge of losing the only real thing in her manufactured life. This isn't a fairy tale about wealth and romance. This is about two broken people who almost let pride and fear kill the one relationship that actually mattered. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Because what happened next changed both their lives forever. The burnt toast smell had been hanging in the kitchen for 20 minutes. Ryan Mercer stood at the counter, staring at the blackened bread he'd forgotten in the toaster, while his mind wandered somewhere else entirely. The coffee maker gurgled its final protest, spitting out the last drops of what would be his third cup before 8 a.m. Outside the kitchen window, Seattle rain turned the world into varying shades of gray. The sky, the street, the neighbor's fence, all bleeding into one colorless blur. 32 years old, and he felt about 60 most mornings. His daughter Emma's backpack sat by the door where she'd left it the night before, one strap torn and held together with duct tape because he kept forgetting to buy a new one. Her lunchbox waited on the counter, peanut butter sandwich, apple slices going brown despite the lemon juice, and those organic fruit snacks Victoria's nutritionist had recommended that Emma refused to eat. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Victoria was still upstairs, probably already on her second conference call with Singapore or Frankfurt, or wherever her money was making more money while she slept. That's how it worked in her world. Her company, Kane Tech Solutions, had hit a $3 billion valuation last quarter. Ryan had seen the Forbes article on the coffee table, Victoria's face staring up from the glossy cover with that same calculated smile she wore in every photo. "The Woman Who Built Tomorrow," the headline read. He'd felt proud reading it. Also invisible. Those two feelings seemed to go together a lot lately. Ryan dumped the burnt toast in the trash and heard footsteps upstairs. Emma's quick patter versus Victoria's measured stride. His daughter would be down in 5 minutes demanding pancakes he didn't have time to make. Victoria would be down in 10, already frustrated about something that happened in a time zone he couldn't pronounce. This was the rhythm of their life now, had been for months, maybe longer if he was honest with himself. He wasn't always great at honesty, especially the kind that made things harder. The warehouse shift last night had run until 2 a.m. because Martinez called in sick again and Ryan needed the overtime. His back ached from lifting boxes that seemed to get heavier every year, and his hands still smelled like cardboard and packing tape no matter how many times he washed them. He'd come home to find Victoria asleep on the couch in her office, laptop still open, her face illuminated by the screen's blue glow. He'd carried her to bed without waking her, and she'd mumbled something about Q4 projections before rolling away from him. They hadn't actually talked in 3 days. Not really talked. They'd exchanged information. Who's picking up Emma? Did you pay the electric bill? There's leftover chicken in the fridge. Functional sentences. Necessary words. Nothing that required them to actually look at each other. Ryan poured his coffee and added the amount of cream he knew was too much but didn't care anymore. The kitchen was Victoria's design. All white marble and stainless steel, clean lines and expensive appliances he was afraid to use wrong. When they'd first moved in together 2 years ago, she'd hired someone to organize the whole house. Someone whose actual job was organizing other people's belongings. Ryan had watched a woman in athleisure wear and Bluetooth earpiece spend 4 hours arranging his t-shirts by color and season. He'd felt ridiculous then. Felt the same way now. "Daddy?" Emma appeared in the doorway, her brown hair sticking up in 3 directions and sleep still crusted in the corners of her eyes. She wore her favorite pajamas, the ones with dinosaurs that were getting too small, but she refused to give up. 7 years old and already stubborn as hell about the things that mattered to her. She got that from her mother. Her real mother. "Hey, Bug." Ryan crouched down and she walked into his arms, still warm from bed and smelling like the strawberry shampoo they'd used last night. "Sleep good?" "I had a dream about a talking dog." "Yeah? What did he say?" "He said his name was Professor Barkington and he needed help finding his glasses." She pulled back to look at him seriously. "It was very important that we found them." "Did you?" "No. I woke up." She frowned like this was a personal failure. "Do you think he's still looking?" "Probably got them by now." Ryan kissed her forehead. "Professor's a smart dog." Emma giggled, and the sound made something tight in his chest loosen just slightly. This was the part that made everything else bearable. These moments with her where nothing complicated existed. Where he was just dad and she was just his kid, and the world was simple enough to fit inside a dream about a dog with glasses. Can I have waffles? We're out of waffles. Pancakes? Don't have time this morning, Bug. How about cereal? Her face fell the way only a 7-year-old's can. Complete devastation over something that wouldn't matter in an hour. The good cereal or the healthy cereal? The one you'll actually eat. That's the good cereal. I know. She climbed onto the kitchen stool and Ryan poured the chocolate puffs Victoria pretended not to know he kept hidden behind the quinoa. Emma crunched happily while Ryan packed her lunch and tried not to think about how he was failing at the same basic tasks his own parents had handled with 4 kids and a fraction of the money. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother Jake. Still on for Saturday? Marcus wants to know if Emma's coming. Ryan had forgotten about Saturday. Jake's birthday thing at the brewery. Adult time that required arranging a sitter and explaining to Victoria why he needed an evening out when they barely saw each other as it was. He typed back, "Maybe. I'll confirm tomorrow." The dishonest answer was easier than the real one. I don't know if I can handle pretending to be fine in front of people who still think I have my shit together. Where's Victoria? Emma asked through a mouthful of cereal. Upstairs working. She's always working. She's got a big job, Bug. Bigger than your job? Ryan paused mid-pour of his coffee. Different kind of big. She doesn't eat breakfast with us anymore. The observation landed heavier than it should have. Emma said it matter-of-factly, the way kids state truths adults spend years dancing around. No accusation in her voice, just noticing reality. She's been busy lately, Ryan said, which felt like a lie even though it was technically true. Are you and Victoria going to get married? The question came out of nowhere and everywhere at once. Ryan set down the coffee pot carefully. Why are you asking that? Sophia's mom got married last month, and Sophia got to be flower girl and wear a fancy dress. Emma swirled her spoon through the chocolate milk at the bottom of her bowl. I just wondered if we were going to do that. Would you want to? She shrugged, which was 7-year-old for I have feelings about this but don't know how to say them. I don't know. Sometimes Victoria's really nice. She helped me with my science project and she buys good snacks. But sometimes she's... Emma trailed off. Sometimes she's what? Somewhere else. Even when she's here. Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. He sat down next to his daughter and tried to find words that wouldn't make promises he couldn't keep. People get stressed sometimes, especially when they're in charge of a lot of things. It doesn't mean they don't care. Do you get stressed? Sure. You don't act somewhere else, though. Kids were too perceptive for their own good. Or maybe for everyone's good. Before Ryan could figure out how to respond, he heard Victoria's footsteps on the stairs. The particular rhythm of her walk. Confident, purposeful, always going somewhere important. She appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his truck payment, her dark hair pulled back in the severe style she wore for video calls, already looking at her phone. Morning, Ryan said. Morning. Victoria didn't look up. Her thumbs moved across the screen with practiced efficiency. I need to leave in 15 minutes. Tanaka moved the call up and traffic's going to be hell. You want coffee? I'll get something at the office. She finally glanced up, her eyes moving past Ryan to Emma. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, Victoria. Emma's voice had gone quieter, the way it always did when the adult energy in the room shifted from casual to tense. You have everything ready for school? Dad's making my lunch. Good. Victoria's phone buzzed and she looked back down. Ryan, did you remember to sign the field trip form? He had not remembered to sign the field trip form. I'll do it now, he said, already moving toward the backpack. They needed it back yesterday. I'll write a note explaining. Victoria made a sound that wasn't quite agreement or disagreement, just acknowledgement that she'd heard him and found the situation mildly disappointing. She poured herself a glass of water from the filtered pitcher, drank half, then checked her phone again. This was them now, sharing space without actually being together. Ryan found the crumpled permission slip at the bottom of Emma's backpack, signed it quickly, and added a note apologizing for the delay. When he turned around, Victoria was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Not anger, maybe something sadder than that. What? He asked. Nothing. She set down the water glass. I might be late tonight. We're dealing with the merger terms, and Henderson's being difficult about the equity split. Okay, so probably don't wait on dinner. I wasn't planning to. The words came out sharper than he intended. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly, not hurt, but noticing the edge in his voice. Emma looked between them the way she always did when the adult tension started building, her small face worried. Emma, go brush your teeth, Ryan said gently. We need to leave in 10 minutes. Man. She slid off the stool without arguing, grabbing her backpack and disappearing down the hallway. The silence she left behind felt heavy. Victoria set her phone face down on the counter. Is there something you want to say? Not particularly. You sound annoyed. I'm tired. You're always tired. Yeah, well, Ryan rinsed Emma's cereal bowl and put it in the dishwasher. Working double shifts and single parenting will do that. You're not single parenting. I'm here. He almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he just nodded. Right. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Victoria. It doesn't mean anything. He closed the dishwasher harder than necessary. You've got your call in 15 minutes. Don't want you to be late. She stared at him for a long moment, and he could see her calculating whether this was worth pushing, whether the conversation they weren't having was important enough to miss the meeting with Tanaka. He already knew what she'd choose. We should talk, she said finally. Tonight. You said you'd be late. When I get home, then. Sure. But they both knew they wouldn't. She'd come home exhausted, and he'd already be half asleep on the couch, and the conversation would get pushed to tomorrow, then the next day, then the day after that. This was the pattern. They'd been following it for months. Victoria picked up her phone and her keys. I'm trying, you know. I know. It feels like you don't think I am. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the woman he'd fallen in love with somewhere underneath the expensive suit and the defensive posture. The woman who'd cried in his arms after her mother's funeral, who'd admitted she didn't know how to be in a relationship because money had always been easier than vulnerability, who'd asked him once if he thought she was capable of being someone's family. He told her yes, had meant it too. I think you're trying to do everything, he said quietly. And I think that's not the same as trying to be here. Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. Maybe not. I'm building something that matters, Ryan. Something that's going to change entire industries. I'm not asking you to give up your company. Then what are you asking? I'm asking if you could spend one evening with us without your phone, just one. No work, no calls, just be here. The request hung between them, simple and somehow impossible at the same time. Victoria's phone buzzed in her hand and she glanced at it reflexively. When she looked back up, something in her expression had hardened. You don't understand the kind of pressure I'm under. You're right, I don't. These decisions affect thousands of people, thousands of jobs, billions in market value. And I'm asking for one Tuesday night. It's not that simple. It actually is. Victoria's mouth opened, then closed. Her phone buzzed again. Ryan could see the internal war playing out across her face, the pull between what he was asking and what the rest of her life demanded. He already knew which side would win, had known for months. I can't do this right now, she said finally. I have a meeting. Yeah. We'll talk tonight. Sure. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. For a second, Ryan thought she might say something real, something that acknowledged the distance growing between them like rot in the walls of a house that looked fine from the outside. Instead, she said, Emma needs new shoes. Her teacher sent a note home about it yesterday. I'll take care of it. I said I'll take care of it. Victoria nodded once, sharp and final, then walked out. Ryan heard the front door close, then the sound of her car starting in the driveway. He stood in the kitchen that was too nice for him, in the house that was too big, and felt the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on his shoulders. Emma reappeared with her backpack on, teeth brushed, hair now contained in a ponytail he'd need to fix in the car because one side was higher than the other. Ready? He asked. Is Victoria mad? No, Bug. Just stressed about work. Are you mad? Ryan crouched down and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. No, I'm just... He trailed off because he didn't know how to explain to a 7-year-old that you could love someone and still feel completely alone. I'm just tired. But that's not your problem to worry about, okay? She nodded, but didn't look convinced. They drove to school in Ryan's 15-year-old truck that had a crack in the windshield and seats that smelled permanently like French fries. Emma sang along to the radio and told him about Professor Barkington's continuing adventures. Ryan made the right sounds in the right places and tried not to think about Victoria's face when he'd asked for one evening together. He pulled up to the school drop-off line behind a Tesla and a Range Rover. Emma grabbed her backpack and turned to him with the serious expression she wore when saying something important. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Bug. Even when you're tired?" "Especially when I'm tired." She smiled and kissed his cheek, then jumped out and ran toward the building where her friend Sophia was waiting. Ryan watched until she disappeared inside, then pulled out into traffic and headed toward the warehouse for a shift that wouldn't start for another hour. He didn't want to go home to the empty house. The warehouse was in South Seattle, a sprawling building that smelled like cardboard and diesel fuel. Ryan had been working there for 6 years, started right after Caroline died, and he'd needed something steady with benefits that didn't ask questions when he had to leave early for Emma's doctor appointments. The job was simple. Unload trucks. Process inventory. Load trucks. Don't think too hard about the fact that you'd once had plans for something different. "Mercer!" Tommy Chen waved from the loading dock. "Thought you weren't in until noon." "Couldn't sleep." "Yeah, you look like shit." "Thanks, man." Tommy had been there longer than anyone. 15 years of loading boxes and smoking cigarettes on his breaks, and talking about the food truck he was definitely going to open someday. He was 43 and looked 50, with a bad knee and worse gambling habit, but he'd covered Ryan's shifts more times than anyone else when Emma got sick or school called about a problem. "Victoria still giving you grief?" Tommy asked. "We're fine." "You say that like someone who's not fine." Ryan grabbed a box scanner and pretended to check the system. "I don't really want to talk about it." "Fair enough." Tommy lit a cigarette despite the no-smoking signs that were apparently just suggestions. "But for what it's worth, that woman's punching way below her weight class with you." "Wrong direction, man. I'm the one punching up." "Nah, money doesn't mean shit. She's got a good dude who shows up and doesn't cheat and loves his kid. That's rarer than being rich." He took a drag. "Most rich people I know are miserable assholes." "You don't know any rich people?" "Exactly, and I'm still pretty sure I'm right." The morning shift started and Ryan lost himself in the rhythm of physical work that required nothing from him except presence. Scan box, check number, stack pallet, repeat. His back protested and his hands cramped, but his mind went quiet, which was the point. Around 11, his phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "I'm sorry about this morning. Let's actually talk tonight. I'll be home by 7. He stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Okay." But he didn't believe her. The day dragged. Ryan's shift ended at 3, and he picked up Emma from school, took her to the shoe store where she tried on approximately 900 pairs before choosing ones that lit up when she walked, then swung through the grocery store for dinner ingredients. By 6:30, they were home. Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table, and Ryan was chopping vegetables for stir-fry when he heard Victoria's car in the driveway. 7 o'clock. Exactly when she'd said. She came through the door looking exhausted, suit jacket gone, hair down, the careful makeup from this morning starting to wear. She set her bag down and looked at Ryan with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Something smells good. Stir-fry, 20 minutes. Can I help?" The offer surprised him. "You can open the wine if you want." Victoria moved to the cabinet and pulled down a bottle. Nothing fancy, just the grocery store red they both liked. She poured 2 glasses and handed him one, and for a moment they stood in the kitchen like normal people having a normal evening. Emma looked up from her math worksheet. "Victoria, you're home early." "I am." Victoria smiled, a real one, not the professional mask. "How was school?" "Good. I got 100 on my spelling test, and we started learning about fractions, which are basically just broken numbers. And also Dad bought me new shoes that light up when I jump." She demonstrated by bouncing in place. "Those are very cool shoes." "I know." They ate dinner together at the table, all 3 of them, which hadn't happened in weeks. Emma talked about her upcoming field trip to the Science Museum, and Victoria actually asked questions, and Ryan felt the smallest loosening in his chest, like maybe they could still do this, still be something that functioned. After dinner, Emma went to watch TV and Ryan started loading the dishwasher. Victoria picked up a dish towel and began drying things manually, even though everything was dishwasher safe. "Thank you for coming home on time," Ryan said quietly. "I said I would." "I know, but you actually did it." She was quiet for a moment, focused on drying a plate with more attention than necessary. "This morning, what you said about spending one evening together, you were right." Ryan rinsed a glass and handed it to her. "Yeah? I've been drowning in work for months, and I keep telling myself it's temporary. That once we get through this quarter or this merger or this product launch, things will ease up. But they never do." She set down the plate. "And I realized today that I've been using that as an excuse to avoid this. Us." "Yeah." She looked at him directly. "Us." The honesty felt fragile between them, like something that might shatter if either of them moved wrong. "I don't know how to do this," Victoria continued. "How to be in a relationship and still be who I need to be professionally. Every relationship I had before you ended because I chose work. And with you, I thought it would be different because you understood, because you didn't need me to be someone I'm not." "I don't need you to be different," Ryan said. "I need you to be present." "But what if I don't know how to be both?" "Then we figure it out together. But you have to actually want to figure it out." Victoria set down the dish towel. Her hands were shaking slightly. "I'm scared, Ryan." "Of what?" "Of failing at this. Of being another rich person who has everything except the things that actually matter." Her voice cracked. "Of proving that I'm exactly as empty as I feel most days." The vulnerability in her admission hit him square in the chest. This was the Victoria he'd fallen for, the one who admitted fear instead of hiding behind accomplishment, the one who didn't have all the answers. Ryan dried his hands and turned to face her fully. "You're not empty. I feel empty. I look at you with Emma and I see this connection, this easy love. And I don't know how to access that part of myself. I don't know if I ever learned how. So learn now." "What if I can't?" "What if you can?" She laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple, but it's also not impossible." He reached out and took her hand, the first real physical contact they'd had in days. "I'm not asking you to be perfect, Victoria. I'm just asking you to try." "I am trying." "Then try harder." The words came out rougher than he intended, but he didn't take them back. "Because right now it feels like I'm the only one actually fighting for this. And I'm tired. I'm tired of being the one who makes all the compromises and adjusts all my expectations and pretends it doesn't hurt when you choose everything else over us." Victoria's face crumpled. "That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's true. You don't understand the pressure." "Stop." Ryan dropped her hand. "Stop telling me I don't understand. I get that you have pressure. I get that running a billion-dollar company is hard. But I'm raising a kid on warehouse wages while trying to be enough for both of us in this relationship. And that's hard too. Different hard, but still hard. I never asked you to be enough for both of us. You didn't have to ask. It's just what happened when you stopped showing up." The silence that followed felt enormous. Victoria's tears were falling now, streaming down her face unchecked, and Ryan felt his own throat tightening. He didn't want to fight. He wanted to fix this. But he didn't know how to fix something when only one person was holding the broken pieces. "I don't know what you want from me," Victoria said finally. "I want you to care about this more than you care about being successful." "I do care." "Then prove it." "How?" Ryan gestured around the kitchen, at the dirty dishes, the homework on the table, the ordinary mess of real life. "Be here. Not just physically, actually here. Put down your phone. Stop checking email during dinner. Remember that Emma exists. Remember that I exist." "I know you exist." "Do you?" The question came out sharper than he meant it. "Because sometimes I feel like I'm just part of the infrastructure, like the person who keeps things running so you can focus on more important stuff." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Victoria wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing mascara. She looked young suddenly, vulnerable in a way her business persona never allowed. "What do you want me to say, Ryan? That I'm failing? That I'm terrified I'm becoming exactly like my father, brilliant at business and completely incapable of human connection? That I look at Emma sometimes and feel so much love it actually hurts, but I don't know how to show it because no one ever showed me. The admission hung between them like broken glass. Ryan's anger deflated. Not gone, but smaller. He moved closer and very gently wiped a tear from her cheek. Then say that. Say those things instead of hiding behind work. I'm not hiding. You are, though. And I get it. I do. But I can't keep competing with your fear. You're not competing, Victoria. He made her look at him. I asked you for one evening without work. One. And you couldn't even consider it without treating me like I was being unreasonable. Her face twisted with something that looked like pain. You're right. What? You're right. She said it louder this time. You're absolutely right, and I hate it, and I'm scared, and I don't know how to fix it. Before Ryan could respond, she kept talking, the words tumbling out fast and desperate. I wake up every morning, and the first thing I do is check my phone. Not kiss you, not check on Emma. I grab my phone and start putting out fires and making decisions, and by the time I actually see you, I'm already somewhere else. You're right about that, too. I'm here, but I'm not here. She pressed her hands to her face. And I keep thinking if I just work a little harder, make a little more money, build something big enough, then I'll finally feel worthy of you, of Emma, of this life. But it never comes, the worthiness. I just feel more afraid. Ryan didn't know what to say. He'd spent months thinking Victoria's distance was about him not being enough, not being interesting enough, not fitting into her world. But hearing her now, he realized her distance had nothing to do with him. It was about her own fear of not being enough despite having everything. You are worthy, he said quietly, but you have to believe that yourself. I can't make you believe it. I don't know how. Start small. Be here tomorrow night and the night after. Keep showing up until it becomes normal instead of an exception. Victoria nodded, still crying. Okay. And Victoria? Yeah. I need you to know that I'm not going to keep doing this if nothing changes. His voice was gentle but firm. I love you, but I won't teach Emma that this is what love looks like. Two people living parallel lives and calling it a relationship. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. Fear, maybe. Or the beginning of understanding that this wasn't just another fight they'd sleep off and forget. Are you saying you'd leave? Ryan took a breath. I'm saying I need you to fight for this. Really fight. Not just say you'll try and then slide back into the same patterns. If you can't do that, then yeah. Eventually I'd have to leave for Emma's sake, for mine. I don't want you to leave. Then don't make me. The words sat between them, heavy and true. Victoria looked at him with red eyes and smeared makeup, and for the first time in months, Ryan saw actual fear on her face. Not about business or money or failure. Fear of losing him. Maybe that was progress. Or maybe it was just the beginning of the end. He didn't know which yet. Emma's voice called from the living room. Dad, can I have ice cream? The moment broke. Ryan stepped back. I should go check on her. Ryan, we can talk more later, but right now I need to be with my daughter. He left Victoria standing in the kitchen and went to scoop ice cream for Emma, who was curled on the couch watching some cartoon about talking trains. She smiled when she saw him and scooted over to make room. Victoria was crying, Emma said quietly. I know, Bug. Is she okay? She's working through some stuff. Are you working through stuff too? Ryan handed her the bowl of ice cream and kissed the top of her head. Yeah, but it's grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. Emma ate her ice cream in silence for a minute, then said, I like Victoria. I hope she stays. The simple statement cracked something open in Ryan's chest. Me too, Bug. But hope wasn't enough. He knew that better than anyone. Later that night, after Emma was in bed, Ryan found Victoria sitting in the dark living room with a glass of wine. He sat down next to her without saying anything. I meant what I said, she finally spoke. About being scared. I know. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you either. But you'd leave if I can't change. Eventually, yeah. She turned to look at him, her face barely visible in the darkness. That's the first time you've ever drawn a line with me. I know. It's terrifying. For both of us. They sat in silence for a while, not touching, but not completely separate either. Outside, Seattle rain continued its endless drumming against the windows. "I'll be better," Victoria said eventually. "Tomorrow, and the day after." Ryan wanted to believe her, but belief wasn't enough either. "Okay," he said simply. And they sat together in the dark. Two people who loved each other, but didn't know if love was enough to bridge the distance they'd let grow between them. Tomorrow would tell. Or the day after that. Or the day after that. But tonight, they just sat together and listened to the rain and tried not to think about how close they'd come to losing everything without either of them saying a word. The burnt toast smell from the morning was long gone, but the damage was still there, invisible and heavy, and waiting to see if they were brave enough to finally deal with it. The next morning started exactly like the one before it. Ryan woke at 6 to his alarm, made coffee that was too strong, and stood in the kitchen while Seattle rain turned the windows gray. Victoria was already awake. He could hear the shower running upstairs and knew she'd be down in 20 minutes, already on her phone, already somewhere else. Last night's conversation felt both real and impossible. Like maybe he'd imagined the tears and the admissions and Victoria saying she'd be better. Morning had a way of making nighttime honesty feel like a dream you couldn't quite remember. He was pulling out the cereal when Victoria appeared in the doorway. She wasn't dressed for work yet, just wearing sweatpants and one of his old t-shirts, her hair still wet from the shower, no makeup. She looked younger like this, less armored. "Morning," she said. "Morning." She walked to the coffee pot and poured herself a cup. Then she did something that made Ryan's hand freeze on the cereal box. She put her phone face down on the counter and sat down at the kitchen table. Just sat there, drinking coffee, not looking at anything except the rain outside. Ryan didn't know what to do with this. "You okay?" "I'm trying something," Victoria said. "It feels weird." "What are you trying, Em?" "Being here." She looked at him with an expression that was almost shy. "Is that okay?" "Yeah, Yeah." Emma came thundering down the stairs before Ryan could figure out what else to say. She stopped short when she saw Victoria sitting at the table instead of rushing out the door. "You're still here," Emma said, surprised. "I am." Victoria smiled. "I thought I'd have breakfast with you guys today." "Really?" "Really." Emma looked at Ryan like she was checking if this was a trick. He gave her a small nod and she climbed onto the chair next to Victoria, suddenly shy. They ate cereal together. The three of them at the table. Victoria asked Emma about school and actually listened to the answer. Emma told her about Professor Barkington's latest dream adventure. He'd found his glasses, but lost his laboratory. And Victoria nodded seriously like this was important information. Ryan stood at the counter and watched them, afraid to move in case this fragile moment shattered. Victoria's phone buzzed on the counter. Once, twice, 3 times. She didn't look at it. Emma noticed. "Isn't that important?" "Probably," Victoria said, "but this is more important." Ryan saw Emma's face light up in a way it hadn't in months. Such a small thing. A grown-up choosing to stay at the table instead of running toward the next urgent thing. But to Emma, it was everything. After breakfast, Victoria did something else unexpected. She offered to drive Emma to school. "I can take her," Ryan said quickly. "I know, but I want to." Victoria looked at Emma. "Is that okay with you?" Emma nodded, still uncertain but wanting to believe this was real. Ryan watched them leave together, Emma chattering about her lit-up shoes and Victoria actually responding instead of just making polite sounds. He stood in the driveway long after the car disappeared, feeling something he couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. Or fear that hope would make the eventual disappointment worse. He went to work and spent the morning moving boxes while trying not to think too hard about what was happening. Tommy noticed him distracted and made some crack about Victoria finally getting her priorities straight. Ryan didn't argue. Around noon, his phone buzzed. "Victoria. I just had breakfast with Emma. Actually sat and talked with her. It was nice." Ryan stared at the text. She was telling him about something he'd witnessed like it was new information, like she was proud of herself for doing something that should have been normal. He typed back, "It was nice. She liked it." Victoria. "I'm going to try to be home by 6 tonight. Can we have dinner together again?" Ryan. "Yeah, I'll cook something." Victoria. "Thank you." "Thank it. For what?" Ryan wanted to ask. For agreeing to eat dinner in their own house? But he didn't. He just put his phone away and went back to work, trying not to let himself believe things would actually be different. The day crawled. Ryan picked up Emma from school and took her to the park because it wasn't raining for once, and she'd been cooped up inside all week. She played on the swings while he sat on a bench and watched other families existing in their own complicated ways. A mom on her phone while her toddler threw wood chips. A dad pushing his daughter too high on the swings, making her scream with terrified delight. A couple arguing in Spanish by the slide while their kids pretended not to notice. Everyone struggling with something invisible. "Dad," Emma called. "Push me." Ryan got up and pushed her, listening to her laugh, trying to be present instead of worrying about whether Victoria would actually come home on time. Emma kicked her legs and went higher, her hair flying behind her. "Can we get ice cream?" she asked. "You had ice cream last night." "But that was yesterday ice cream. This would be today ice cream." "That's not how ice cream works." "It could be." He laughed despite himself. "Fine, but just a small one." They went to the ice cream place near the park, and Emma got chocolate with sprinkles and ate it so enthusiastically she got it all over her face. Ryan wiped her down with about 20 napkins, and they drove home, arriving just after 5:30. Victoria's car was already in the driveway. Emma's eyes went wide. "She's really home early." "Looks like it." They found Victoria in the kitchen, already changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, chopping vegetables. Actual vegetables. Not ordering takeout or reheating leftovers. Cooking. "Hey," she said when they walked in. "I thought I'd make pasta. Is that okay?" Ryan set down his keys carefully. "Yeah, that's great. I might mess it up. I haven't cooked in a while. We'll survive." Emma ran over to show Victoria her ice cream-stained shirt as evidence of their afternoon adventure. Victoria laughed. A real laugh, not the polite one she used at business dinners, and helped Emma get cleaned up. They cooked together. Victoria handled the sauce while Ryan boiled pasta, and Emma set the table with the mismatched plates they'd collected over 2 years of living together. The kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and tomatoes, and something that felt dangerously close to normal. During dinner, Victoria's phone stayed on the counter. It buzzed periodically. Ryan could see the screen lighting up with notifications, but she didn't check it. Not once. Emma noticed. "Your phone is going crazy." "I know," Victoria said, "but I'm having dinner with you guys. They can wait." "What if it's an emergency?" "Then they'll call twice." Victoria twirled pasta around her fork. "How was the park?" Emma launched into a detailed account of every single thing she'd done, including pushing another kid on the swings and making a friend whose name she'd already forgotten, but who had a dog named Captain. Victoria listened like this was the most interesting thing she'd heard all day. Ryan ate and watched and tried not to think about how this was only the second day. How easy it would be to slip back into old patterns once the guilt from their fight wore off. After dinner, Victoria did the dishes while Ryan helped Emma with homework. Math problems about fractions that made Emma groan dramatically. Victoria wandered over and sat down, looking at the worksheet. "I was terrible at fractions," she said. "Really?" Emma looked skeptical. "But you're smart." "Being smart doesn't mean you're good at everything. I failed a math test in 5th grade and cried for like 2 hours. "You did?" "Yep. My dad was so mad. He told me crying was for people who didn't try hard enough." The casual mention of her father made Ryan look up. Victoria almost never talked about her childhood. He knew the basics. Distant father, absent mother, raised mostly by nannies and boarding schools, but she never went into detail. Emma frowned. "That's mean." "Yeah, it kind of was." Victoria helped her with a particularly confusing problem about pizza slices. "But I learned that just because you're bad at something doesn't mean you should give up. You just have to try harder." "Is that why you work so much?" The question came out of nowhere. Emma said it innocently, just connecting dots, but Ryan saw Victoria freeze. "Maybe," Victoria said quietly. "I never really thought about it like that." "You should take breaks, though. Dad says breaks are important." "Your dad's a smart guy." "I know." Emma went back to her worksheet. "He's the smartest person I know. Except for my teacher, and you. So maybe tied for third." Victoria smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. After Emma finished her homework and went to watch TV, Victoria stayed at the table, staring at the worksheet full of fraction problems. "You okay?" Ryan asked. "Did I turn into my father?" She looked up at him. "Is that what happened?" Ryan sat down across from her. What do you mean? Work above everything. Success as the only measure of worth. Relationships as secondary to achievement. She picked at the edge of the worksheet. I swore I'd never be like him. And then somewhere along the way, I just became exactly that. You're not your father. How do you know? Because you're here right now having this conversation instead of convincing yourself you're fine. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. He died alone, you know. My father, heart attack in his office at 71. They found him the next morning when the cleaning crew came in. He was sitting at his desk with his glasses still on, probably reviewing quarterly reports or some shit. Ryan had known her father died, hadn't known the details. I went to the funeral and stood there looking at his casket, and all I could think was that nobody there actually knew him. They knew the CEO, the board chairman, the guy who built a financial empire. But nobody knew what he liked for breakfast or what made him laugh or if he ever regretted anything. She looked at Ryan with wet eyes, and I thought, I don't want this. I don't want to die at my desk and have people remember my net worth instead of my life. So don't. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I don't know who I am without the work. Her voice cracked. The company is the only thing I've ever been good at, the only thing that makes sense. Take that away. And what's left? Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. You're a person who makes Emma laugh, who cries at sad movies even though you pretend you don't, who once spent an entire Saturday building a blanket fort because I mentioned missing them from childhood. That's who you are without work. That's not enough. Why does it have to be more than enough? She pulled her hand away and stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, darkness had fallen and rain was starting again. You don't understand what it's like. You've always known who you are. Father, worker, good person. It's all so clear for you. It's not clear. I'm figuring it out just like everyone else. But you're not terrified of disappearing the second you stop being useful. The admission hung in the air between them. Ryan stood and walked over to her, turning her to face him. Is that what you think? That you're only worth what you produce? Isn't that how the world works? Maybe, but that's not how love works. Victoria's face twisted. I don't know how love works. Nobody ever showed me. My mother left when I was 6. My father treated me like an employee. Every relationship I've had ended because I chose work over the person. She pressed her hands to her face. And now I'm doing the same thing to you and Emma, and I don't know how to stop. You stop by stopping. You make different choices. But what if I can't? What if I'm too broken? You're not broken. I feel broken. Ryan pulled her into his arms and she collapsed against him, crying into his shoulder. He held her while she shook, feeling the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone. All the fear and inadequacy and desperate need to be enough that no amount of success could ever satisfy. I don't want to lose you, she said into his chest. I don't want to lose you either. But you're right, what you said yesterday. I haven't been fighting for this. I've been running from it. So stop running. I'm scared. I know, but you have to do it anyway. They stood together in the kitchen while Emma's cartoon played in the other room and the rain drummed against the windows. Eventually, Victoria pulled back, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I have therapy tomorrow, she said. Individual therapy. I've been going for a few months, and Ryan hadn't known that. Yeah? I haven't told you because I felt ashamed about needing it. Like admitting I needed help was admitting failure. She laughed bitterly. Which is stupid because I know therapy is good. I just couldn't apply that logic to myself. What does your therapist say about all this? That I use work to avoid intimacy. That I'm terrified of being vulnerable because vulnerability means someone can hurt you. That I need to learn to trust that people can love me for who I am instead of what I achieve. She looked at him. Basic stuff I should have figured out decades ago. Better late than never. Is it though? What if I've already damaged this too much? Ryan took a breath. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if we're going to make it, but I know we won't if you don't actually try. I am trying. You've been trying for 2 days, and that doesn't count? It counts, but it's also just a start. Victoria nodded slowly. Fair enough. They went to bed that night without talking more about it. Ryan lay awake listening to Victoria's breathing and wondered if this was progress or just a temporary pause before everything fell apart. He wanted to believe they could fix this, wanted to believe love and effort were enough. But he'd learned a long time ago that wanting something didn't make it true. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Victoria came home on time, had dinner with them, kept her phone mostly silent, helped with homework, acted like a person who lived in the house instead of a visitor passing through. Emma bloomed under the attention. She started waiting by the door for Victoria to come home, ready to tell her about school. She asked Victoria questions about work and listened to the answers like they mattered. She even suggested they watch a movie together Friday night, all three of them. Ryan watched it happen and felt the careful walls around his heart starting to crack. Maybe this would work. Maybe they could actually do this. Friday night arrived and they made popcorn for the movie. Emma picked something animated about a robot who wanted to be human. They settled on the couch, Emma between them, and Ryan felt something close to contentment. Halfway through the movie, Victoria's phone rang. She ignored it the first time. It rang again and again. "You should probably get that," Ryan said quietly. "It can wait." But the fourth time it rang, Emma looked up at her. "What if it's important?" Victoria hesitated, then grabbed her phone from the coffee table. She looked at the screen and her whole body tensed. "I need to take this," she said, already standing. "It's Henderson, about the merger." She walked into the kitchen and Ryan heard her voice shift into business mode. Sharp, confident, completely different from the person who'd been sitting on the couch 30 seconds ago. Emma looked at Ryan. "Is she coming back?" "Yeah, Bug, just needs to handle something quick." But it wasn't quick. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Ryan could hear Victoria's voice rising, the conversation clearly going wrong. Emma lost interest in the movie and started playing with her dolls instead. After 40 minutes, Ryan paused the movie and went to check on her. Victoria was pacing the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, laptop open on the counter. Her whole face was tight with stress. "I don't care what his counteroffer is," she was saying. "We agreed on those terms. If he's backing out now, he can deal with the consequences. No, I'm not being unreasonable. I'm holding him to his word. Tomorrow? Are you kidding me? Tomorrow's Saturday." Fine. Yeah, I'll be there at 9. She hung up and stood there, gripping the phone so hard her knuckles were white. "You okay?" Ryan asked. She jumped like she'd forgotten he existed. "The merger's falling apart. Henderson's trying to renegotiate everything at the last minute, and if I don't fix this, we're going to lose 18 months of work." "Okay. I have to go in tomorrow. All day, probably." Ryan felt something sink in his chest. "Tomorrow's your day off." "I know, but this is important." "Yeah, I know." Victoria caught the tone in his voice. "Ryan, this is a $1 billion deal. Literally. I can't just ignore it." "I'm not asking you to ignore it. I'm just pointing out that this is the pattern. You try for a few days and then work pulls you back and we're right back where we started. That's not fair. This is an actual emergency." "Is it though? Or is Henderson just pushing you around because he knows you'll drop everything?" "You don't understand." "Stop telling me I don't understand." Ryan's voice rose despite his attempt to stay calm. "I understand fine. Work comes first. It always does." "That's not true." "Victoria, we've been doing better for exactly 5 days." 5. And the first time something comes up, you're already choosing the office over us. "I'm not choosing." She stopped, looked at him. "What do you want me to do? Let the merger collapse? Lose everything we've built? I want you to figure out if your company is worth more to you than your family." The word hung between them. Family. Ryan had never used it before to describe them, him and Victoria and Emma. It felt too presumptuous, too much like claiming something that wasn't his to claim. But he'd said it now. Victoria stared at him. "We're not a family." The words hit like a physical blow. Ryan felt his whole body go cold. "What?" "We're not married. Emma's not my daughter. We're dating, living together. But we're not a family." Ryan couldn't speak for a long moment. When he finally did, his voice came out flat. "Right. Okay then." "Ryan, I didn't mean No, you're right. We're not a family. I'm the guy you live with, and Emma's the kid who comes with the package." He turned to walk away. "Sorry for the confusion. Don't do that." "Do what?" "Get all wounded and shut down." Ryan laughed without humor. "I'm not wounded. I'm just understanding the situation correctly now. You've been showing up for 5 days because you felt guilty. not because you actually want this. That's not true. Then what is true, Victoria? Because from where I'm standing, you just made it pretty clear that we don't matter as much as your business deal. It's not about mattering more. Then what's it about? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked completely lost. Emma appeared in the doorway in her pajamas. Why are you yelling? Both adults froze. We're not yelling, Bug, Ryan said quietly. Just talking. It sounds like yelling. Emma's face was worried. Are you fighting about me? No, not about you. About Victoria's work? Neither of them answered, which was answer enough. Emma looked at Victoria. You're leaving tomorrow, aren't you? I have to handle something at the office, Victoria said carefully, but just for the day. You're always handling something at the office. Emma, it's okay. Emma's voice was small. I get it. Work is more important. That's not... Victoria started, but Emma was already walking away, back toward the living room where the movie was still paused on the TV. Ryan and Victoria stood in the kitchen in terrible silence. I should go talk to her, Victoria said finally. Should you? What does that mean? It means maybe she's right. Maybe work is more important to you. And maybe it's better if we all just accept that instead of pretending it's going to change. I'm not pretending. Aren't you? Victoria's face crumpled. I don't know how to do this, Ryan. I don't know how to be the person you need and also be the person my company needs. And I know that makes me selfish or broken or whatever. But I'm drowning here and you're acting like it's simple. It's not simple, but it is a choice. And you keep choosing the same thing. So what do you want? You want me to quit? Sell the company? Become a stay-at-home girlfriend? I want you to want to be here more than you want to be anywhere else. Just 101s, just to know it's possible. But what if it's not possible for me? The question settled between them like a stone. Then I guess we have our answer, Ryan said quietly. He walked out of the kitchen and found Emma on the couch, not watching the movie, just sitting there looking small. He sat next to her and pulled her close. You okay, Bug? She shrugged. Talk to me. I thought maybe this time would be different, she said quietly. I thought maybe Victoria was going to stay. Ryan's throat tightened. She's not going anywhere. She just has to work tomorrow. But that's the problem, Dad. She's always working. Even when she's here, she's not really here. Not like you are. I know. Do you think she'll ever be here? Like, really here? Ryan didn't know how to answer that. He'd been asking himself the same question. I don't know, Bug. Emma nodded against his chest. That's what I thought. They sat together while the movie stayed paused, and Victoria remained in the kitchen. Eventually, Ryan got Emma to bed and came back downstairs to find Victoria sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop closed, staring at nothing. She asleep? Victoria asked. Yeah. She hates me. She doesn't hate you, she's just... Ryan sat down across from her. She's protecting herself. Kids do that when adults keep disappointing them. I'm not trying to disappoint her. I know, but impact matters more than intention. Victoria pressed her palms against her eyes. I don't know what to do. If I don't fix this Henderson situation, the merger dies. If the merger dies, 18 months of work disappears and probably 200 jobs with it. People depend on me to make this work. And Emma depends on you to show up. I can't be both people at once. Then which person are you going to be? She looked at him with devastated eyes. That's an impossible question. Is it? Yes. Because if I choose work, I lose you. And if I choose you, I lose everything I've built, everything I am. That's not true. Isn't it? You said yourself you need me to want to be here more than anywhere else. But the company is part of who I am. I can't just amputate it and expect to survive. Ryan felt exhausted suddenly, bone-tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical work. I'm not asking you to amputate anything. I'm asking you to find balance. I don't know how. Then figure it out. Or don't. But stop stringing us along while you decide. The words came out harsher than he intended, but he didn't take them back. He was tired of being understanding. Tired of making excuses for why Victoria couldn't do the bare minimum of being present. Is that what you think I'm doing? Victoria asked quietly. Stringing you along? I think you want to have everything. The company, the relationship, the perfect life. But you're not willing to sacrifice anything to actually make it work. That's not fair. Life's not fair. They stared at each other across the table. Two people who'd once loved each other easily and now couldn't seem to navigate the basic act of existing in the same space. Maybe I should move out, Victoria said finally. Ryan's stomach dropped. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want. That's the problem. Then figure it out, but don't make rash decisions because you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm realistic. She stood and closed her laptop. This isn't working. We both know it. Maybe it's better if we just admit that instead of dragging it out. Is this you giving up? This is me recognizing that I can't be what you need. Did I ask you to be anything except present? Yes. You asked me to want to be here more than anywhere else. And I can't promise that because half the time I don't even want to be anywhere. I just want to work until I'm too tired to feel anything. The admission stopped Ryan cold. Victoria kept talking, the words tumbling out. You and Emma, you make me feel things I don't know how to handle. Love and guilt and inadequacy and fear. And when I'm at work, I can control things. I can solve problems and make decisions and feel competent. So yeah, sometimes I choose that over sitting in the messy, uncomfortable reality of trying to be in a relationship I'm clearly failing at. So get help. Keep going to therapy. Work on it. I am working on it, but it's not happening fast enough for you. You want me fixed now. You want me to magically know how to be in a healthy relationship when I've never seen one in my entire life. I don't want you fixed. I want you to try. I am trying. For 5 days. You tried for 5 days, and then the first test comes and you're already backing out. Because I have responsibilities. So do I. I have a daughter who's watching me accept scraps of attention from someone who can't decide if we matter. What kind of example is that? Victoria's face went pale. So that's it then. You're done. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Ryan stood and walked to the sink, gripping the edge of the counter. I'm not done, but I'm also not going to keep pretending this is okay. You need to decide what you actually want, Victoria, not what you think you should want, not what looks good on paper, what you actually want. And if what I want is both, then you need to figure out how to actually have both instead of half-assing everything. The silence that followed felt final somehow, like they'd reached the edge of something and were both looking over, trying to decide whether to jump or step back. I'm going to bed, Victoria said finally, and tomorrow I'm going to the office because that meeting can't wait, and I don't know what happens after that. She walked out, leaving Ryan alone in the kitchen with the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on his shoulders. He stood there for a long time, listening to the rain and wondering how they'd gotten here. How two people who'd once fit together so easily had become strangers performing the routine of a relationship neither of them knew how to fix. Eventually, he went upstairs and found Victoria already in bed, curled on her side, facing away from him. He got in on his side and they lay there in the dark, not touching, the space between them feeling wider than the actual distance. I do love you, Victoria said into the darkness. I know I'm bad at showing it, but I do. Ryan closed his eyes. I know. Is that enough? I don't know. And they lay there in the dark, two people who loved each other, but didn't know if love was enough to bridge the gap between who they were and who they needed to be. Outside, the rain continued falling, and inside, everything felt like it was slowly disappearing. Victoria left before Ryan woke up Saturday morning. He knew because her side of the bed was cold and her coffee mug sat in the sink, already rinsed. No note, no text, just the absence of her and the sound of Emma's cartoons drifting up from downstairs. Ryan lay there staring at the ceiling and tried to figure out what he was supposed to feel. Angry felt too easy. Resigned felt too much like giving up. He settled on tired and got out of bed. Emma was eating cereal when he came down, still in her dinosaur pajamas, eyes fixed on the TV. Victoria left already, she said, without looking at him. I know, Bug. She didn't say goodbye. She probably didn't want to wake you. Emma finally turned to look at him with eyes that were too old for 7. You don't have to make excuses for her, Dad. Ryan sat down next to her on the couch. I'm not making excuses. Yes, you are. You always do. She went back to her cereal. It's okay, though. I'm used to it. The casual acceptance in her voice hurt worse than anger would have. Ryan pulled her close and she let him, but she felt stiff, guarded in a way she never used to be. They spent the day doing normal Saturday things: grocery shopping, laundry. The park again because Emma had energy to burn, and Ryan needed to be anywhere except the too quiet house. They got lunch at the burger place Emma loved, and she talked about her friend Sophia's upcoming birthday party and whether she should get her a doll or a book. Ryan listened and responded and tried not to check his phone every 5 minutes to see if Victoria had texted. She hadn't. By 6 o'clock they were home and Ryan was making dinner when his phone finally buzzed. "Victoria, still at the office. This is taking longer than expected. Don't wait up." He stared at the message. Not an apology, not an explanation. Just information delivered like a weather report. He didn't respond. Emma noticed him looking at his phone. "That's Victoria, isn't it?" "Yeah. She's not coming home for dinner." "Doesn't look like it." "Told you." Emma grabbed plates from the cabinet. "Should I set 3 spots anyway?" "Just 2 tonight, bug." They ate spaghetti together, and Emma told him more about the birthday party and how Sophia's parents were getting a bounce house. Ryan made the appropriate excited sounds and tried not to think about Victoria sitting in her office, choosing spreadsheets over them for the 100th time. After Emma went to bed, Ryan sat in the living room with a beer he didn't really want and tried to figure out what came next. Breaking up felt inevitable at this point. They'd had their moment of honesty, and it hadn't changed anything. Victoria was who she was. He was who he was. Those two people didn't fit together, no matter how much they wanted to. The front door opened just after 11. Victoria came in looking exhausted, her suit wrinkled, makeup smudged under her eyes. She saw Ryan on the couch and stopped. "You waited up," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She set down her bag and stood there awkwardly, like she didn't know if she was allowed to sit down. "How was your day?" "Fine." "Emma asked about you." "Yeah?" "She's getting used to you not being around." Victoria flinched. "That's not fair." "It's just an observation." She walked to the kitchen and came back with a glass of water, finally sitting on the other end of the couch. They sat in silence for a long moment. "The merger's back on track," Victoria said finally. "Henderson agreed to the original terms." "Good." "I know you don't care, but I do care. I just also care about other things." "I know." More silence. Ryan finished his beer and considered getting another one just to have something to do with his hands. "I've been thinking," Victoria said quietly, "about what you said. About me needing to decide what I want." "And?" "And I think we should see a therapist, together." Ryan looked at her. "Couples therapy?" "Yeah, I know I need help figuring this out, and I can't do it alone. My individual therapist suggested it months ago, but I was too proud to admit we needed it." She twisted her hands together. "But we do need it. I need it." "You think a therapist can fix this?" "I think a therapist can help us figure out if it's fixable. And if it's not, then at least we'll know, instead of just dragging it out until we hate each other." Ryan considered it. He'd never done therapy. Caroline had suggested it after she got diagnosed, but they'd run out of time before they could start. The idea of sitting in a room with a stranger talking about feelings made him uncomfortable in a way he couldn't quite articulate. But the alternative was watching this relationship die slowly while they both pretended they didn't notice. "Okay," he said finally. "We can try it." "Yeah?" "Yeah. But Victoria, if we're doing this, you have to actually show up, not just physically. You have to be willing to be honest and do the work." "I know. I'm serious. I can't keep being the only one fighting for this." "You're not the only one." She moved closer on the couch. "I know it feels like that, and I know I've given you every reason to think I don't care, but I do. I'm just really bad at this. Being in a relationship? Being a person someone could love." The admission was so raw that Ryan felt his anger soften despite himself. "I do love you." "Even after all this?" "Love doesn't just turn off because things are hard. Maybe it should." She looked at him with tired eyes. "Maybe it would be easier if you could just hate me and leave." "I don't want easy. I want real." "What if real isn't good enough?" "Then we'll deal with that when we get there." They sat together in the quiet living room with all the things they'd said and not said hanging between them. Eventually, Victoria leaned against him and Ryan put his arm around her, and they stayed like that until the exhaustion won and they went to bed. Sunday morning, Victoria didn't go to the office. Ryan woke to find her in the kitchen making pancakes with Emma, both of them covered in flour and laughing about something. The sight made his chest ache with how much he wanted this to be normal instead of exceptional. "Morning," Victoria said when she saw him. "We're making a mess." "I can see that," Emma grinned, flour on her nose. "Victoria's teaching me to flip them." "She's better at it than I am," Victoria admitted. She had batter on her shirt and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she looked more relaxed than Ryan had seen her in months. They ate pancakes together, and Victoria kept her phone in the other room and actually seemed present. After breakfast, she suggested they go to the aquarium because she'd read about a new jellyfish exhibit and thought Emma would like it. "Really?" Emma's face lit up. "All three of us?" "If your dad wants to." Ryan wanted to say yes, wanted to believe this was real and not just Victoria feeling guilty after their fight. But Emma was looking at him with so much hope that he couldn't say no. "Sure, let's go." The aquarium was crowded with families doing the same Sunday outing. They looked at fish and sea otters and the jellyfish that glowed like something from another planet. Emma pressed her face against the glass and asked a million questions, and Victoria answered them with more patience than Ryan expected. At one point, Emma ran ahead to look at the shark tunnel, and Ryan and Victoria stood watching her through the plexiglass. "Thank you for this," Victoria said quietly. "For what?" "Giving me another chance. Most people would have walked away by now." "I'm not most people." "I know, that's why I can't afford to lose you." Ryan looked at her. "You keep saying that, but your actions don't match your words." "I know, I'm working on that." "Are you, though?" "I found us a therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen. She specializes in couples where one partner has workaholism tendencies. I called her Friday night and she has an opening Tuesday evening if we can make it." Ryan was surprised she'd actually followed through. "That was fast." "I told you I'm trying." "Okay, Tuesday works." They watched Emma run from tank to tank, her excitement contagious. Other families moved around them, caught up in their own complicated dynamics. A couple arguing quietly by the touch tank. A dad checking his phone while his kids tried to get his attention. A mom looking overwhelmed with 3 kids under 5. Everyone struggling with something. That night after Emma went to bed, Ryan and Victoria sat in the living room with the TV on, but neither of them watching. "I'm scared about therapy," Victoria admitted. "Why?" "What if the therapist takes your side? What if she tells me I'm the problem and I need to change everything? Would that be wrong?" "I don't know, maybe. But it's terrifying to think about someone else confirming what I already suspect about myself." "Which is what?" "That I'm fundamentally incapable of this. Of being in a relationship. Of being enough for someone." Ryan turned off the TV so he could look at her properly. "You know that's not true." "Do I?" "Victoria, the problem isn't that you're incapable. The problem is that you keep choosing work over everything else because it's safer. Work has clear metrics, clear success markers. Relationships are messy and complicated, and you can do everything right and still fail." "So you think I'm scared?" "I know you're scared. You told me that yourself." She pulled her knees up to her chest, looking smaller than usual. "What if the therapist says we should break up?" "Then we'll deal with that." "Just like that? You'd be okay with it?" "I didn't say I'd be okay with it. I said we'd deal with it." Ryan moved closer. "But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is we're going to sit in a room and talk about hard things and slowly figure out how to actually communicate instead of just existing next to each other." "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple, but it's possible." "Is it?" "Yeah, if we both want it badly enough." Victoria rested her head on his shoulder. "I want it. I'm just not sure I know how to do it." "That's what the therapist is for." They sat together, and Ryan felt something in his chest loosen slightly. Not hope exactly, more like the possibility of hope. Like maybe they actually had a chance if they both stopped being so afraid of failing that they refused to try. Tuesday evening, they drove to Dr. Chen's office in Capitol Hill, a converted house with a waiting room that had too many plants and abstract art that was probably supposed to be calming but just made Ryan more nervous. Victoria sat next to him, bouncing her leg, checking her phone even though she'd promised not to. "You okay?" Ryan asked. "No, I feel like I'm going to throw up." "You don't have to do this if you don't want to." "Yes, I do. I just don't want to." She put her phone away. "That made more sense in my head." A door opened and a woman in her 50s with silver hair and kind eyes looked out. Ryan and Victoria? They followed her into an office that looked more like someone's living room. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, a box of tissues prominently placed on the side table in a way that made Ryan think they'd be needing them. Dr. Chen sat across from them with a notepad. Thank you both for coming. I know this takes courage. Why don't we start by each of you telling me in your own words why you're here? Ryan looked at Victoria. She looked back at him. Neither wanted to go first. I'll start, Victoria finally said. I'm here because I'm bad at relationships, and I'm about to lose the best thing that's ever happened to me if I don't figure out how to stop sabotaging it. Dr. Chen nodded. And Ryan? I'm here because I love her and I don't know how to help her, or if I even should be trying to help her, or if maybe we're just fundamentally incompatible and we're both too stubborn to admit it. Those are both very honest answers. Let me ask you this. What does a good relationship look like to each of you? The question sat there for a moment. Ryan thought about Caroline and the easy partnership they'd had. Nothing dramatic. Just two people building a life together one ordinary day at a time. It looks like someone being there, he said finally. Not perfectly, not all the time, but consistently. Like you matter enough that they show up even when it's not convenient. Victoria's hands were clenched in her lap. It looks like someone staying even when they know all your broken parts. Not trying to fix them necessarily, just not leaving because of them. Dr. Chen wrote something down. And do you feel like you're getting those things from each other? No, they both said at the same time. Okay, let's talk about that. The next hour was brutal. Dr. Chen asked questions that felt designed to crack them open. She made them talk about their childhoods, their first marriages, their fears. She pointed out patterns they'd both been avoiding. When Victoria talked about her father dying alone at his desk, Dr. Chen asked, "Are you afraid of becoming him or afraid that you already have?" Victoria started crying. Both. When Ryan talked about Caroline and how he'd failed to save her, Dr. Chen asked, "Do you think you're trying to save Victoria the same way? And punishing her when she won't let you?" Ryan felt like he'd been punched. I don't know. Maybe. By the end of the session, they were both exhausted and raw, and Dr. Chen was looking at them with an expression that was hard to read. "I'm going to be direct with you both," she said. "This relationship is in trouble. You know that, but I don't think it's unfixable. What I do think is that you're both bringing a lot of unresolved trauma into this and using each other as band-aids instead of actually dealing with your own issues. So we should break up?" Victoria's voice was small. "I didn't say that. I said you need to do individual work alongside the couple's work. Victoria, you need to figure out who you are outside of your professional identity. Ryan, you need to process your grief and your pattern of trying to fix people you love. And together, you need to learn how to communicate honestly instead of just waiting for the other person to read your mind." "That sounds like a lot of work," Ryan said. "It is. But from what I can see, you both care about each other. That's a good foundation. Now you just need to build the skills on top of it." Dr. Chen looked between them. "I want to see you both weekly, and I want you to commit to some homework." "What kind of homework?" Victoria asked. "Small daily practices. Taking turns choosing how to spend 1 hour together without phones or work. Saying one thing you appreciate about each other before bed. Sitting with discomfort instead of running from it." She smiled slightly. "None of it is rocket science. It's just hard because it requires being vulnerable." They scheduled their next appointment and drove home in silence. Ryan didn't know what to say. The session had pulled out things he hadn't wanted to look at. The idea that maybe he was trying to save Victoria the same way he'd tried and failed to save Caroline. "That was intense," Victoria said finally. "Yeah. Do you think she's right? About us using each other as band-aids? I don't know. Maybe." Ryan pulled into their driveway. "But I do think we need to do the work she's talking about. Even if it's hard? Especially if it's hard." They went inside and found Emma already asleep, the babysitter reading on the couch. After she left, Ryan and Victoria stood in the kitchen, neither quite knowing what to do with themselves. "Dr. Chen said we should appreciate one thing about each other before bed," Victoria said. "You want to start now?" "Might as well." She took a breath. "I appreciate that you keep showing up even though I give you every reason not to. That you're patient with me even when I'm terrible at this. That you believe I can be better even when I don't believe it myself." Ryan felt his throat tighten. I appreciate that you're trying, for real this time. That you're willing to admit you need help instead of pretending you're fine. That you haven't given up even though it would probably be easier. They stood there looking at each other across the kitchen, and something felt different. Not fixed, but maybe less broken than before. Over the next few weeks, they settled into a new routine. Therapy every Tuesday. Individual sessions for both of them on Thursdays. The daily hour together that rotated who chose. Sometimes a walk, sometimes cooking together, sometimes just sitting and talking. It wasn't smooth. They fought more than before because Dr. Chen had told them to stop avoiding conflict. Victoria had a meltdown in week 2 when she realized she'd been using work as a way to avoid feeling anything uncomfortable for most of her adult life. Ryan had his own breakdown in week 3 when his individual therapist pointed out that he'd been playing the martyr in his relationships since his wife died. But they kept showing up. Emma noticed the change slowly. Victoria started picking her up from school once a week. They had family dinners most nights instead of sometimes. Victoria helped with homework and came to Emma's school play and actually turned off her phone when she said she would. It wasn't perfect. There were still nights when Victoria got pulled into work emergencies. Still times when Ryan felt resentful about doing more than his share. Still moments when they both wanted to run instead of deal with the mess they were in. But they were both there, trying, fighting for something instead of just letting it die quietly. One night, about 6 weeks into therapy, they were doing the dishes together, their chosen hour for the day, when Victoria said something that made Ryan stop mid-rinse. "I think I'm going to hire a CEO." He looked at her. "What?" "For Kane Tech. I'm going to stay on as founder and chairman but bring in someone else to run day-to-day operations." She handed him a plate to dry. "My therapist asked me what success looks like, and I realized I've been defining it as total control. But what if success is building something that doesn't require me to sacrifice everything else? That's a big decision." "I know. And it's terrifying, but I think it's the right one." She looked at him. "Dr. Chen asked me what I'm running toward versus running from, and I realized I've been running from intimacy my whole life, using work as the excuse. But if I take that excuse away, I have to actually face whether I'm capable of this." "And you think you are?" "I think I want to find out." Ryan dried the plate carefully. "What made you change your mind?" "Honestly, Emma." Victoria's eyes got wet. "She made me a card last week. Did you see it?" Ryan shook his head. "It was a drawing of the 3 of us, and she wrote my family at the top." Victoria wiped her eyes. "When you said that word before, family, I panicked, because claiming it meant admitting I wanted it, and wanting things makes you vulnerable. But looking at that card, I realized I already want it. I've wanted it for months. I've just been too scared to admit it." Ryan set down the dish towel and pulled her close. She was crying now, really crying, and he just held her while she shook. "I'm so scared I'm going to fail at this," she said into his chest. "You might. That's not helpful." "We both might fail. That's how relationships work. There's no guarantee." "How do you live with that uncertainty?" "You just do. Because the alternative is living without trying, and that's worse." She pulled back to look at him. "When did you get so wise?" "Therapy, apparently." She laughed through her tears. "We're both kind of a mess, aren't we?" "Yeah, but we're trying to be less of a mess. That counts for something." They finished the dishes and went to check on Emma, who was supposed to be asleep but was clearly reading under the covers with a flashlight. "Busted," Ryan said from the doorway. Emma jumped and tried to hide the book. "I was just finishing the chapter." "That's what you said 3 chapters ago." But Ryan was smiling. Victoria sat on the edge of Emma's bed. "Can I see what you're reading?" Emma showed her the book, some fantasy thing about dragons and magic. Victoria asked her questions about the plot, and Emma lit up, explaining the complicated world building. Ryan leaned against the doorframe watching them and felt something settle in his chest. This was what he'd been fighting for. This exact moment. The 3 of them together in the ordinary magic of a Tuesday night. After Emma actually went to sleep, Ryan and Victoria got ready for bed. She'd been sleeping over consistently now, instead of sometimes staying late at work and crashing in her office. Small progress that felt enormous. "I have something to tell you," Victoria said as they were getting into bed. Ryan's stomach dropped. "Okay, I love you. And I'm in this. For real this time." She took his hand. I know I've said it before, but I mean it differently now. Not as something I feel obligated to say, as something I actually mean. I love you too. Even though I'm difficult and broken and bad at this, you're not broken. You're just figuring it out. Same thing. Not even close. They lay in the dark holding hands, and Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in months. Not happiness exactly, but hope. Real hope that maybe they could actually do this. Ryan? Victoria's voice was quiet. Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not letting me. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Inside, two people who'd almost lost each other were slowly learning how to stay. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And for now, that was enough. 3 months after that conversation, Ryan found himself loading suitcases into his truck at 5 a.m. while Victoria made sandwiches in the kitchen, and Emma bounced around the living room too excited to sit still. The North Carolina trip had been Victoria's idea. She'd brought it up during therapy when Dr. Chen asked them about shared experiences they'd been avoiding. Victoria admitted she'd canceled this exact trip 2 years running because work always seemed more urgent than a weekend away. So let's go, Ryan had said in the session. Now? Not right now, but soon, before you can talk yourself out of it again. Dr. Chen had smiled like this was exactly the kind of breakthrough she'd been waiting for. They'd picked a weekend in late April, when the weather would be good, and Victoria had blocked off her calendar with the same intensity she used for board meetings. No negotiating, no rescheduling, just 3 days in the mountains. Now here they were, actually doing it. Victoria came out with a cooler full of snacks and drinks. She'd been planning this trip like a military operation for the past 2 weeks, researching hiking trails, finding the best cabin rental, making lists of things to pack. Ryan had watched her pour the same meticulous energy she usually reserved for product launches into planning family time and felt something warm spread through his chest. I think we're ready, she said, looking at their loaded truck with satisfaction. You packed like we're going for a month. I want to be prepared. We're going to the mountains, not Antarctica. Better to have things and not need them than need things and not have them. Emma appeared with her backpack. Can we go now? Can we go now? Can we go? Yeah, Bug, we can go. Ryan lifted her into the back seat and buckled her in. She had her tablet for the drive and about 17 stuffed animals she'd insisted were essential. They pulled out of the driveway as the sun was just starting to paint the sky pink. Victoria sat in the passenger seat with a real paper map spread across her lap, even though they had GPS. She liked having backup plans. Ryan had learned this was just how she operated, always preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. The drive took them east through changing landscape. Seattle's gray rain gave way to clear skies as they crossed into Idaho, then Montana. They stopped for lunch at a diner where the waitress called everyone honey, and the coffee tasted like it had been made sometime last week. Emma got a grilled cheese and chocolate milk and talked non-stop about the horses they'd seen from the highway. Victoria actually put her phone away without Ryan having to ask. They hit the North Dakota border by late afternoon and stopped at a roadside motel that had seen better decades. The room smelled like cigarettes and cleaning products fighting for dominance, and the TV only got 3 channels, but Emma thought it was an adventure. Can I sleep in the bed by the window? She asked. Sure, Bug. This is like camping, but inside. Ryan and Victoria exchanged a look over her head. Victoria was trying not to laugh. That night, after Emma crashed hard from the excitement, Ryan and Victoria sat outside their room in the plastic chairs watching trucks pass on the highway. Thank you for planning this, Ryan said. I should have done it years ago. You're doing it now. That matters. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about what Dr. Chen said last week, about how I use achievement to feel worthy, and I realized I've been doing that with this trip too. What do you mean? I've been trying to plan the perfect family vacation. Like if I get everything right, it'll prove I'm capable of this, that I'm not just a workaholic who stumbled into a relationship. She pulled her jacket tighter against the evening chill. But there's no such thing as perfect, is there? Not really. So what do I do instead? Just be here. That's enough. She looked at him in the fading light. Is it though? Is just showing up really enough? For me it is. For Emma, it is. Ryan reached over and took her hand. I know you're used to having to prove yourself constantly, But with us, you don't have to earn your place. You already have it. I'm still learning how to believe that. I know, but you're learning. That's what matters. They sat holding hands while the highway hummed with strangers going to places they'd never know. The motel sign flickered neon pink, and Victoria's phone stayed silent in their room, and Ryan felt more content than he had in months. The next morning, they drove into Wyoming and then south into Colorado before cutting east into Nebraska. The landscape changed from mountains to plains, endless skies stretching in every direction. Emma counted cows and played the license plate game, and eventually fell asleep with her head against the window. Victoria navigated and occasionally read interesting facts from the guidebook she'd bought. Ryan learned more about the Oregon Trail than he'd ever wanted to know, but he listened because Victoria's enthusiasm was kind of adorable. "Did you know that pioneers traveled about 15 miles a day?" she said. "I did not know that. We've already gone like 400 miles and it's not even lunch. Modern technology is pretty cool." They also had to deal with dysentery and cholera and broken wagon wheels. "We've got decent air conditioning and Emma's not dying of dysentery, so I'd say we're winning." She laughed and went back to her guidebook, reading in comfortable silence while Ryan drove through the American heartland. They crossed into Kansas by afternoon and stopped at a rest area so Emma could burn off energy. She ran around the picnic area like she'd been caged for days while Ryan and Victoria stretched their legs. "How are you doing?" Ryan asked. "With being away from work this long?" "Better than I expected." Victoria watched Emma climb on a statue of a buffalo. "I had a moment of panic yesterday when Henderson emailed about the Parker account, but then I realized Marcus could handle it. That's why I hired him as CEO." "And you trust him?" "I'm learning to. My therapist says control is my coping mechanism for fear, so letting go feels like dying a little bit." She smiled wryly. "But I'm still alive, so that's good." They got back on the road and drove through the afternoon into evening, finally crossing into Missouri as the sun started setting. Victoria had booked a nicer hotel this time. Not fancy, but clean and updated with a pool that made Emma scream with excitement. After swimming and dinner at a barbecue place that made Emma's eyes water from the spicy sauce, they settled into their room. Emma fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from 2 days of travel. Ryan took a shower and came out to find Victoria sitting on the balcony with a glass of wine from the bottle they'd picked up at dinner. "Room for one more?" he asked. She patted the chair next to her. "Always." They sat looking out at the parking lot and the highway beyond. Not a romantic view by any measure, but peaceful in its ordinary way. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria said. "Of course. I'm really happy right now." She said it like a confession, like genuinely, uncomplicatedly happy. "And I don't think I've felt that in years. Maybe ever." Ryan took her hand. "Yeah? Yeah, and it's terrifying because what if I mess it up? What if we get home and I slide back into old patterns? What if this is just a vacation high that disappears when real life starts again? Then we deal with it. But Victoria, you've been doing the work for months now. This isn't a fluke. You've changed." "Have I, though? Or am I just on my best behavior because we're away from normal stress?" "I think you're being who you actually are when you're not using work to hide from yourself." She absorbed that. "My therapist said something similar last week, that maybe the workaholic version isn't the real me, it's just the armor I wear." "So who's the real you?" "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring that out." She looked at him. "Is that okay? That I don't have the answer?" "More than okay. I'd rather have the real confused you than the fake certain version." They finished their wine and went to bed. Emma sprawled between them like a starfish. Ryan lay awake listening to both of them breathe and thought about how far they'd come from that morning in Seattle when Victoria had said she could replace him in 24 hours. She'd been so wrong. And so, not because he was irreplaceable. Everyone was replaceable, given enough time and effort. But because replacement wasn't the same as connection. You could find another person, another relationship, another life. But you couldn't replicate the specific alchemy of two particular people choosing each other every day despite all the reasons not to. The next morning, they drove through the rest of Missouri into Tennessee, watching the landscape shift from plains to rolling hills to actual mountains. The Smokies rose in the distance like ancient guardians, and Emma pressed her face to the window, trying to see everything at once. "Are those the mountains we're staying in?" she asked. "Close to there," Victoria said, checking the map. "We're going to the Blue Ridge Range in North Carolina, should be there by tonight." They stopped for lunch in Nashville and walked around downtown while a street musician played guitar on the corner. Emma danced unselfconsciously to the music, and Victoria dropped a 20 in his case. They got hot chicken that made Ryan's mouth burn, and Emma declared too spicy after one bite. Back in the truck, Emma fell asleep again, and Victoria and Ryan drove through the afternoon with music playing softly. "I've been thinking," Victoria said as they crossed into North Carolina. About? About what happens after this trip. How we keep this feeling when we get back to real life. What are you thinking? I think I want to start having a no-phone rule at dinner, not just sometimes, every night, and maybe we could do a family night once a week where we all pick an activity together. Yeah, I'd like that. And I want to talk to Emma, really talk to her, about whether she'd be okay with me adopting her, if that's something you'd want. Ryan nearly swerved off the road. What? I know we're not married, and I know that's a huge step, but she called us a family in that drawing, and I've been thinking about it ever since. Victoria twisted her hands together. I want to be her family, legally, if you both want that. Victoria, you don't have to answer now. I know it's big. I just wanted you to know I've been thinking about it, about committing to this for real, not just living together and seeing how it goes. Ryan pulled into a rest area and put the truck in park. He turned to look at Victoria fully. Are you serious? Completely. I love that kid, and I love you, and I don't want to keep hedging my bets like I might bail when things get hard. I want to be all in. Ryan felt his throat get tight. We'd have to talk to Emma. Make sure she understands what it means. I know. And you'd have to be sure, really sure, because you can't adopt a kid and then decide it's too much. I know that too. I've been in therapy working through this for weeks. My therapist thinks I'm ready. I think I'm ready. But I wanted to talk to you first. Ryan looked back at Emma sleeping in the back seat, her mouth open slightly, completely trusting and innocent. Then he looked at Victoria, who was waiting with barely contained anxiety for his answer. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, let's talk to her, see what she thinks. Victoria's whole face lit up. Really? Really? But Victoria, if we do this, there's no halfway. You'd be her mom, not legally but emotionally keeping distance mom. Her actual mom. I know, that's what I want. He pulled her into a kiss that was probably too passionate for a rest area parking lot, but he didn't care. When they pulled apart, Victoria was crying happy tears, and Ryan felt like his heart might actually burst. They drove the last few hours into the mountains as the sun set, painting everything gold and orange. The cabin Victoria had rented sat on a hill surrounded by pine trees with a view of the valley below. It had a wide porch and rocking chairs and a hot tub on the deck. Emma woke up as they pulled in and immediately wanted to explore everything. Ryan unloaded the truck while Victoria and Emma investigated every room, their excited voices carrying through the open windows. That night they grilled burgers on the porch and ate while watching fireflies blink in the darkness. Emma caught them in a jar and let them go, watching them fly away. Victoria sat in a rocking chair with a blanket, and Ryan could see her physically unwinding, the tension she normally carried in her shoulders finally releasing. After Emma went to bed, Ryan and Victoria sat in the hot tub looking at more stars than either of them had seen in years. I forgot what silence sounds like, Victoria said. Yeah. In Seattle, there's always something, traffic or sirens or construction. But here, it's just quiet. You like it? I love it. It's freaking me out a little bit, but I love it. Ryan laughed. Why is it freaking you out? Because I keep waiting for something to demand my attention. And nothing is. It's just me and my thoughts, and that's still kind of uncomfortable. What are your thoughts saying? That I'm really happy and really scared I'll mess this up. She looked at him across the bubbling water. Same conversation we keep having. That's okay. Important conversations bear repeating. They soaked until their fingers pruned and then went to bed in the cabin's master bedroom. The windows were open and cool mountain air drifted through, carrying the smell of pine and earth. Victoria curled against Ryan's side and he felt her breathing slow as she fell asleep. He lay awake a while longer, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of nature and thinking about Victoria wanting to adopt Emma, about the three of them becoming a real family in every sense. It felt too good to be true and also completely right. The next morning, Ryan woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of voices outside. He pulled on jeans and went to the porch to find Victoria and Emma already up, sitting on the steps drinking hot chocolate. "Morning, sleepyhead," Victoria said. "What time is it?" 8:30. "We've been up for an hour." Emma grinned at him, chocolate mustache on her upper lip. "Victoria showed me how to make fancy hot chocolate with the frother thing." "Did she now?" "It has cinnamon and everything." Ryan sat down next to them and accepted the mug Victoria handed him. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the morning light move across the valley. "I was thinking we could hike today," Victoria said. "There's a trail that leads to a waterfall. Supposed to be pretty easy." "Can I bring my camera?" Emma asked. "Absolutely." They spent the morning hiking through the woods. The trail was well marked but challenging enough that they all worked up a sweat. Emma ran ahead, taking pictures of everything: trees, rocks, mushrooms, bugs. Victoria kept pace with Ryan, occasionally reaching for his hand on the steeper sections. The waterfall was worth the hike. Water cascaded down moss-covered rocks into a clear pool. Emma immediately wanted to put her feet in despite the cold water. Ryan and Victoria sat on a flat rock and watched her splash around. "Can we talk to her?" Victoria asked quietly. "About the adoption thing?" "Now?" "Not right this second, but maybe tonight. I don't want to wait too long. I might chicken out." "You won't chicken out." "I might. You don't know." Ryan squeezed her hand. "Tonight. After dinner." They hiked back to the cabin and spent the afternoon being lazy. Emma played on the porch while Ryan and Victoria read books in the hammock, wedged together in a tangle of limbs that was probably not how hammocks were meant to be used, but worked for them. For dinner, Victoria made pasta, while Ryan and Emma set the table on the porch. They ate as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of purple and pink that looked almost fake. After Emma finished, Victoria took a deep breath and looked at Ryan. He nodded. "Emma, can we talk to you about something?" Victoria said. Emma looked between them, suddenly worried. "Am I in trouble?" "No, Bug, nothing like that," Ryan said. "Victoria wants to ask you something." Victoria set down her fork and turned to face Emma fully. "You know how your dad is your dad, legally and in every way?" Emma nodded slowly. "Well, I was wondering how you'd feel if I became your mom, in the same way, legally and everything." Emma's eyes went wide. "Like adoption?" "Yeah, exactly like adoption." "But you're not married to my dad." "We don't have to be married for me to adopt you. We just both have to want it. Your dad and I have already talked about it, but what matters most is if you want it." Emma looked at Ryan. "Do you want Victoria to adopt me?" "I do." "But only if you do." She was quiet for a long moment, her 7-year-old brain working through the implications. "Would I call you Mom?" Victoria's voice was gentle. "You could call me whatever you're comfortable with. Mom, Victoria, V, whatever feels right to you. And you'd come to my school stuff? And help with homework and everything?" "I already do those things. But yes, I'd keep doing them, as your mom." "What about my real mom, the one who died?" Ryan's chest tightened, but Victoria answered before he could. "She'll always be your real mom, too. You can have more than one mom. She was your first mom, and she loved you so much. I'd just be your second mom, who also loves you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I miss her sometimes." "I know, sweetie. That's okay. You're allowed to miss her and still want me to be your mom, too." "Would you leave? If you're my mom, would you still leave like she did?" The question broke Ryan's heart. Victoria's too, from the look on her face. "I would never choose to leave you," Victoria said, her own voice thick. "I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen because life doesn't work that way. But I can promise I will always choose to stay and be your mom for as long as I'm alive." Emma wiped her eyes. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." They finished dinner in quieter spirits. Emma went to get ready for bed, and Ryan helped Victoria clean up. "That went okay, right?" Victoria asked, scrubbing a plate anxiously. "Yeah, she just needs to process." "What if she says no?" "Then we respect that and keep being what we are now." "But what if—" Ryan took the plate from her and set it down. "Stop catastrophizing. She's thinking about it. That's good. It means she's taking it seriously." Victoria nodded but looked unconvinced. 20 minutes later, Emma appeared in the living room where they were sitting. She climbed onto the couch between them, bringing her favorite stuffed elephant. "I thought about it," she said. Both adults went very still. "And I think I want you to be my mom." Emma looked at Victoria. But can I still call you Victoria? Mom feels weird right now. Victoria was crying before Emma finished the sentence. You can call me whatever you want. Victoria is perfect. And you promise you won't get too busy with work and forget about me? I promise I will work really hard to always make time for you. And if I mess up, you can tell me and I'll fix it. Okay. Emma hugged her elephant. Then yeah, I want you to be my mom. Victoria pulled Emma into a hug that lifted her off the couch. Ryan joined in and they stayed like that for a long moment, 3 people becoming a family in a cabin in the North Carolina mountains. When they finally pulled apart, Emma had one more question. Does this mean I get 2 birthday parties? Ryan laughed. Why would you get 2 birthday parties? Because I have 2 moms now, one who's in heaven and one who's here. So I should get 2 parties. Victoria was laughing and crying at the same time. That's not how it works, sweetie. Are you sure? We should at least check. They spent the rest of the evening playing board games and eating ice cream and feeling like maybe everything was actually going to be okay. Emma fell asleep on the couch, and Ryan carried her to bed. When he came back, Victoria was standing on the porch, looking out at the stars. You okay? He asked. I'm going to be someone's mom. She said it with wonder and terror in equal measure, like officially, legally. You already are someone's mom. This just makes it official. What if I'm bad at it? You won't be. How do you know? Because you love her, and you show up. That's like 90% of parenting. Victoria turned to face him. When we get back to Seattle, I want to make this official, not just the adoption, us. Ryan's heart skipped. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to marry you, Ryan Mercer. I want to adopt Emma and marry you and be a real family in every possible way. She took his hands. I know I'm not perfect. I know I still have work to do, but I also know I want to do that work as your wife and Emma's mom. Is that a proposal? It's a really awkward proposal, yeah. Ryan pulled her close and kissed her. When they broke apart, he said, Then yes, yeah, let's do it. Really? Really? But Victoria, marriage doesn't fix things. We'll still have to work at this. I know, but I want to work at it with rings and legal paperwork and everything. They stood on the porch holding each other while the mountain night surrounded them. Somewhere in the distance an owl called, and the wind moved through the pine trees, and Ryan felt something settle in his soul that had been restless for years. This was it. This was the life he'd been fighting for. Not perfect, not easy, but real and good, and worth every difficult conversation and therapy session and moment of doubt. They went to bed that night as an engaged couple planning an adoption and woke the next morning to Emma jumping on their bed announcing she wanted pancakes. The rest of the trip passed in a blur of hiking and swimming and simple moments that felt profound in their ordinariness. They took pictures and roasted marshmallows and talked about what kind of wedding they wanted. Emma had strong opinions about flower colors. On their last morning in the cabin, Ryan woke early and went to sit on the porch with coffee. Victoria joined him a few minutes later, wrapped in a blanket. I don't want to go back, she said. I know. Not because I dread real life, just because this has been really good. We can have good back home, too. You think? I know we can. It'll look different, but we can do it. She rested her head on his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me when I gave you every reason to. For fighting for this even when I couldn't. You fought, too. Eventually. But you started the fight. They sat watching the sunrise paint the valley below in shades of gold, and knowing that when they drove back to Seattle, everything would be different. Not because the problems had disappeared, but because they'd finally learned how to face them together instead of alone. Emma emerged sleepy and disheveled, climbed into Victoria's lap, and the 3 of them sat together watching the last mountain morning, already a family in every way that mattered. The drive back to Seattle took 4 days instead of 3 because none of them wanted the trip to end. They stopped at roadside attractions, Emma pointed out. The world's largest ball of twine, a dinosaur museum in some forgotten Wyoming town, a diner shaped like a giant coffee pot. Victoria took pictures of everything and didn't check her work email once. Ryan caught her looking at her phone a few times, but it was always photos of Emma or the scenery, not spreadsheets or investor reports. Progress looked like a lot of small things instead of one big gesture. When they finally pulled into their driveway late on a Sunday evening, The house looked different somehow. Same white walls and expensive furniture and two perfect kitchen. But it felt less like a showroom and more like a place where actual people lived. Emma ran inside to check on her room like maybe it had disappeared while they were gone. Victoria and Ryan stood in the driveway unloading bags in comfortable silence. "Tomorrow I have to go back to the office," Victoria said, pulling out the cooler. Ryan felt his stomach tighten reflexively. "Yeah?" "Just for a few hours. Marcus has been handling things, but I need to check in, make sure the transition is working." She looked at him. "But I'll be home by 3. I already told him I'm picking Emma up from school. You don't have to." "I want to. I told her I'd be there, and I'm going to be there." They carried everything inside and started the process of transitioning back to normal life. Laundry and unpacking and restocking the fridge. Emma showed them every single thing in her room to confirm it was exactly as she'd left it, then crashed hard at 8 o'clock, exhausted from the drive. That night, Ryan and Victoria lay in their own bed for the first time in a week. "Feels different," Victoria said. "What does?" "Being back. Usually coming home from a trip feels like returning to prison. But this feels okay. Maybe because you're not dreading Monday. Maybe. Or maybe because I actually want to be here now." She rolled to face him. "Can I tell you something weird?" "Always." "I'm excited about being boring. Like genuinely excited about regular dinners and homework help and whatever normal families do. Is that weird?" "No, that's called having a life. I've never had one of those before." "How's it feel?" "Terrifying, but good terrifying, like jumping off a diving board terrifying." Ryan pulled her close. "We're going to mess this up sometimes. You know that, right? It's not going to be perfect." "I know, Dr. Chen warned me about that. She said I'd probably have moments where I panic and revert to old patterns. But she also said that's normal and doesn't mean I'm failing." Smart lady. "She also said you're going to have moments where you don't trust that I've actually changed, where you're waiting for me to disappear again." Also probably true? "So what do we do when that happens?" "Talk about it. Keep going to therapy. Remember why we're doing this." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do. You and Emma. You're the best things that ever happened to me." "Even better than $1 billion company?" "Not even close. The company is just money and success and ego. You two are actual life." They fell asleep tangled together, and Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in years, genuine peace about the future. Monday morning arrived with its usual chaos. Emma couldn't find her homework folder and Ryan burned the toast, and they were running 10 minutes late by the time they got out the door. Victoria had already left for the office, but she'd made Emma's lunch and left a note on the counter that said, "Good luck on your spelling test, E-Love V." Emma clutched the note like treasure the whole drive to school. Ryan went to work and spent the day moving boxes while thinking about wedding plans and adoption paperwork and all the logistical complexity of building a legal family. Tommy noticed him distracted and asked if he'd won the lottery. "Something like that," Ryan said. "You're smiling like an idiot." "Victoria and I are getting married." Tommy dropped the box he was holding. "No shit." "No shit. And she's adopting Emma." "Mercer, that's..." Tommy grabbed him in a rough hug that smelled like cigarettes and hard work. "That's really good, man. I'm happy for you." "Thanks." "So when's the wedding?" "We haven't figured that out yet. Soon, though. Neither of us wants to wait." "Smart. Life's too short to wait for the good stuff." Ryan's shift ended at 2, and he got to Emma's school by 2:30. He parked and waited, expecting to be alone in the pickup line. But Victoria's car was already there, pulled up near the front. She'd actually come. He walked over and knocked on her window. She jumped and then laughed when she saw him. "You're early," he said when she rolled down the window. "Wanted to make sure I didn't miss her." Victoria checked her phone. "I left the office at 1:30, and Marcus looked at me like I'd announced I was joining the circus. But I told him this is how it's going to be now, and he'd better get used to it." "How'd he take it?" "Confused but supportive. I think everyone's waiting for me to crack and go back to working 80-hour weeks." "Are you going to?" "Ask me in 6 months." The school bell rang and kids poured out. Emma spotted them both, and her face lit up like Christmas morning. She ran over and hugged Victoria first. "You came!" "I said I would." "I know, but you actually did it." Victoria looked stricken by Emma's surprise. I'm going to keep doing it, okay? Every Monday. That's our day. Really? Really? They went for ice cream even though it was a school night because Victoria said sometimes you had to celebrate small victories. Emma got chocolate with gummy bears and told them about her day in exhaustive detail. Victoria listened like it was the most important business presentation she'd ever heard. That night at dinner, all three of them at the table, phones in the other room, Emma asked when the wedding would be. We're thinking small, Victoria said. Just family and close friends, maybe in a few months. Can I be in it? You'd be the most important person in it. We were thinking you could be our flower girl or ring bearer, whatever you want. Can I be both? Ryan laughed. Sure, Bug. You can be both. And can I wear a fancy dress? The fanciest dress we can find. Emma grinned and went back to her dinner, already planning her outfit in her head. After she went to bed, Ryan and Victoria sat on the couch with wine and started making actual plans. They decided on August, 4 months away. Small ceremony in the backyard, just their closest people. Emma could help pick flowers and decorations. I want to do the adoption first, Victoria said, before the wedding. So when we get married, I'm already legally Emma's mom. That'll take time, paperwork and home studies and all that. I know. I already talked to a lawyer. She said we could probably have it done by July if we move fast. You talked to a lawyer? Last week. While you and Emma were hiking that second trail, I made some calls. Ryan looked at her. You were serious about this. Did you think I wasn't? I guess I'm still getting used to you following through. The words came out harsher than he meant, but they were true. Victoria didn't flinch. Fair enough. I've given you a lot of reasons not to trust that I mean what I say, but I'm going to keep showing up until you believe me. I believe you. Not all the way you don't. I can see it in your face sometimes. You're waiting for me to fail. I'm not. Yes, you are, and that's okay. I earned that skepticism, but I'm going to prove you wrong. She said it with quiet determination, and Ryan felt his chest tighten with something that felt dangerously close to hope. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. Victoria went to work but left by 3 most days. They had family dinners every night. Phones stayed off the table. Weekends were for them, parks and museums and the farmer's market. Normal life things that Victoria approached with the same intensity she used to reserve for board meetings. The adoption process started with paperwork. So much paperwork. Background checks and financial statements and references from people who could confirm they were fit parents. Victoria filled out every form with meticulous care while Ryan watched her create spreadsheets to track deadlines. You know this isn't a business deal, right? He said one night while she was organizing adoption documents into color-coded folders. I know, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. There's no performance review for being a mom. Isn't there, though? Every time Emma looks at me and decides whether I'm trustworthy or not, that's a performance review. That's not how kids work. How do they work then? Ryan thought about it. They just need you to show up consistently and love them. That's it. Everything else is bonus. So I'm already passing? You're already passing. She looked relieved and went back to her folders. The home study happened in May. A social worker named Patricia came to the house and interviewed them separately and together. She asked about their relationship and their plans and how they'd handle conflict. She talked to Emma alone for 30 minutes while Ryan and Victoria waited anxiously in the kitchen. When Patricia came out, her face was neutral. Emma's a great kid. Thank you, Ryan said. How did she seem? She seems very clear about what she wants. She told me Victoria makes good pancakes and helps with homework and is teaching her about business stuff, which she thinks is boring but also kind of cool. Patricia smiled. She also said Victoria used to be gone a lot, but now she's here more and she likes that better. Victoria looked like she might cry. She said that? She did. Look, I've been doing this for 15 years and I've seen a lot of adoptions. Some feel forced or obligatory. This doesn't. This feels like a family that's already formed and is just making it legal. She packed up her laptop. I'll have my report done in 2 weeks, but I don't anticipate any issues. After she left, Victoria sat on the couch and cried into her hands. Ryan sat next to her and waited. I thought she was going to say I wasn't good enough, Victoria said finally. Why would she say that? Because I spent 2 years barely being present. Because I almost destroyed this before it started. Because I'm still figuring out how to be a person someone could love. But you are figuring it out. That's what matters. Is it enough, though? Emma thinks so. Patricia thinks so. I think so. The only person who doesn't think so is you. Victoria wiped her face. My therapist says the same thing, that I'm my harshest critic. Your therapist is right. They sat together in silence, and Ryan thought about how far they'd come from that morning when Victoria had said she could replace him in 24 hours. She'd been so certain then, so armored against vulnerability. Now she was crying on the couch because a social worker had confirmed she was a good mother. Progress looked like being brave enough to care about the answer. June arrived with better weather and Emma's birthday. Victoria had been planning for weeks. A party at the park with Emma's whole class, a bounce house, a cake shaped like a unicorn that cost more than Ryan's weekly grocery budget. The day of the party, Victoria was a nervous wreck. What if kids don't come? What if they do come but they're bored? What if the bounce house deflates? What if Emma hates it? Bug, breathe, Ryan said, using Emma's nickname intentionally. It's going to be fine. How do you know? Because Emma's excited and her friends are excited and you planned the hell out of this. It's going to be great. The party was chaotic in the way 8-year-old birthday parties always are. Kids running everywhere, sugar-fueled screaming, parents making small talk while secretly counting the minutes until pickup time. Emma was ecstatic, running between the bounce house and the face-painting station and the table piled with presents. Victoria stood near the food table looking overwhelmed. You okay? Ryan asked. There are so many children. Why are there so many children? You invited her whole class, so that was a mistake. He laughed and kissed her temple. You're doing great. I'm sweating through my shirt and I think I just agreed to host a sleepover next month. Welcome to parenting. When it came time for cake, Emma insisted Victoria help her blow out the candles. They did it together while everyone sang and took pictures, and Ryan captured a photo of them laughing with frosting on their noses that would end up framed on the mantel. After the party, after the cleanup, and the sugar crash and getting Emma to bed despite her protests that she was too excited to sleep, Ryan and Victoria collapsed on the couch. We survived, Victoria said. You did good. I spent $600 on a child's birthday party. And she'll remember it forever. Worth it? Completely worth it. Victoria leaned against him. I got the call from Patricia yesterday. The home study came back approved. We can file the adoption petition next week. Ryan sat up. Really? Really? The lawyer says we should have a court date by the end of July. We could be legally official before the wedding. Victoria, that's amazing. I'm terrified. I know. What if I mess it up? You won't. You don't know that. I know you love her. I know you show up. I know you're trying every single day to be better than you were yesterday. That's enough. She was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Anything. When my dad died and I went to the funeral and saw all those people who didn't actually know him, I made myself a promise. I promised I would never end up like that. Never be so consumed by achievement that I forgot to have a life. She looked at him with wet eyes. And then I spent the next decade becoming exactly that. Working until I couldn't feel anything. Achieving more and more and feeling emptier and emptier. And when you asked me for one evening without work, I panicked because I realized I'd broken my own promise. I'd become my father. But you're not him. How do you know? Because you're here. Because you chose to change. He never did that. He died at his desk still chasing whatever he thought would finally make him enough. You stopped chasing and started building something real. Victoria pulled him into a kiss that tasted like tears and relief. When they broke apart, she said, I don't deserve you. That's not how love works. How does it work? You just show up and keep choosing each other. There's no deserving, just choosing. Then I choose you, every day, even on the hard days. Same. They sat together in the quiet house with the sound of Emma's music box playing faintly from upstairs and the knowledge that everything they'd fought for was finally becoming real. The adoption hearing happened on July 23rd in a courtroom that was smaller and less formal than Ryan expected. Emma wore a dress Victoria had let her pick, purple with sparkles and absolutely inappropriate for a legal proceeding, but Emma loved it, so that's what she wore. The The judge was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and reading glasses on a chain. She asked Emma if she understood what adoption meant. "It means Victoria becomes my real mom," Emma said confidently. "And is that what you want?" "Yes, because she makes good pancakes, and she helps with my homework, and she doesn't leave anymore even when work is busy." The judge smiled. "Those are good reasons." She looked at Victoria. "And you understand that adoption is permanent? That you're accepting all legal and emotional responsibility for this child?" "I understand," Victoria said. Her voice was steady, but Ryan could see her hands shaking. "And I want that. I want to be her mother in every way." "Then it's my honor to grant this petition. As of today, Emma Mercer is legally your daughter." The judge banged her gavel, and just like that it was done. Victoria started crying immediately. Emma hugged her, and Ryan hugged both of them, and they stood in the courtroom being a family that was finally official in every sense. Outside on the courthouse steps, Victoria's parents were waiting. Her mother had flown in from New York, and her father had died years ago, but her uncle was there representing that side. They'd been inside for the hearing, and now they came over to congratulate them. "I'm proud of you," Victoria's mother said quietly. She was a severe woman who rarely showed emotion, but there were tears in her eyes. "You're doing what I never could, choosing family." Victoria hugged her mother, and Ryan saw years of complicated history in that embrace. They went to lunch at Emma's favorite burger place and celebrated with milkshakes and fries. Emma told everyone about her new legal status and showed them the papers like they were treasure. Victoria held Ryan's hand under the table and looked happier than he'd ever seen her. That night after Emma went to sleep clutching her adoption certificate, Ryan and Victoria sat in the backyard looking at stars. "1 month until the wedding," Victoria said. "Getting cold feet?" "The opposite. I wish it was tomorrow." "We could elope." "Emma would murder us. She's been planning her flower girl outfit for months." Ryan laughed. "True." They sat in comfortable silence, and Ryan thought about everything that had changed in the past year. How close they'd come to losing each other. How they'd fought their way back from the edge. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said. "Always. That morning when I said I could replace you in 24 hours, did you think about leaving then?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, deciding whether to be honest. "Yeah, I did." "Really?" "I sat in my truck after I dropped Emma at school and thought about what it would look like to move out, find an apartment, do this alone." He looked at her. "I'd already made peace with it, with letting you go if you couldn't fight for us. But you didn't leave, because you cried in the living room that night, and you were honest for the first time in months, and I realized you were just as lost as I was. I was terrified. I'd spent so long building walls that I didn't know how to let you in. I know. I almost lost the best thing in my life because I was too scared to admit I wanted it. But you didn't lose it. You fought for it." "We both did." They sat holding hands, and Ryan felt grateful for every hard conversation and therapy session and moment of doubt that had led them here. Sometimes the best things in life required almost losing them first to understand their value. The wedding happened on a Saturday in late August in their backyard with 50 people in attendance. Emma wore a white dress with purple flowers and carried both the rings and a basket of petals because she'd insisted on doing both jobs. Victoria wore a simple ivory dress and looked more beautiful than Ryan had ever seen her. Ryan wore a suit Tommy had helped him pick out and tried not to cry during the vows. They wrote their own promises to each other. Ryan went first. "Victoria, when we met, I was drowning in grief and responsibility, and you saw something in me I'd forgotten was there. You made me believe I could have a life beyond survival, and then you almost walked away from that life because you were scared of wanting it. But you didn't walk away. You stayed and fought and changed and chose us every single day. I promise to keep choosing you too. On the hard days and the easy days and all the days in between." Victoria's hands were shaking when it was her turn. "Ryan, you asked me once what I was running toward versus running from. For most of my life, I've been running from intimacy and vulnerability and the terrifying possibility that someone could love me for who I am instead of what I achieve. You made me stop running. You made me stand still long enough to realize that the thing I was looking for wasn't in my company or my success or my bank account. It was sitting beside me the whole time. You and Emma. My family. I promised to keep showing up, to keep putting down my phone and choosing presence over performance, to keep fighting for this even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. They exchanged rings while Emma beamed from her spot between them. The officiant pronounced them married, and they kissed while everyone applauded and Emma cheered the loudest. The reception was casual, barbecue and beer, and a playlist Victoria had spent weeks curating. Emma danced with everyone who'd stand still long enough. Victoria's mother gave a speech about second chances and choosing love over fear. Jake told embarrassing stories about Ryan from childhood that made Emma laugh until she couldn't breathe. Late in the evening, Ryan found Victoria sitting on the porch steps watching the party from a distance. "You okay, Mrs. Mercer?" She smiled at the name. "I'm perfect. Just needed a minute." He sat next to her. "Overwhelmed?" "Happy overwhelmed. There's a difference." They watched Emma dancing with Tommy while other guests mingled and laughed. The backyard was strung with lights, and everyone looked warm in the golden glow. "I was thinking about what you said that morning," Victoria said quietly. "About me not finding what I was looking for." "Yeah?" "You were right. I wasn't looking for another man. I was looking for myself, for permission to want things that didn't come with a profit margin or performance metric, for proof that I could be someone worth loving without achieving anything." "And did you find it?" "I'm finding it. Every day. In the small moments, Emma's laugh, your patience, pancakes on Sunday, all the ordinary things I used to think didn't matter." Ryan put his arm around her. "They're the only things that matter. I know that now." They sat together watching their daughter dance at their wedding in their backyard, surrounded by people who loved them, and Ryan felt a completeness he'd never expected to find again after Caroline died. Not because Victoria had replaced his first wife, nobody could do that, but because she'd helped him build a different kind of life, one that honored the past while embracing the future. Emma ran over, breathless and grinning. "Dad, Victoria! Come dance." "In a minute, Bug," Ryan said. "No, now! It's our song." Victoria stood and pulled Ryan up. "What's our song?" "The one from the movie, about the family." They let Emma drag them back to the makeshift dance floor, and the three of them danced together while everyone watched and took pictures. Emma stood between them, holding both their hands, and Ryan looked at Victoria over their daughter's head and saw his whole life reflected back. Not perfect, not without complications, but real and good, and worth every moment of doubt that had led them here. Later that night, after the last guests left and Emma finally crashed from exhaustion, Ryan and Victoria cleaned up in comfortable silence, picking up plates and cups and folding chairs while music still played softly from the speakers. "Thank you," Victoria said as they carried the last load inside. "For what?" "For not giving up on me when I gave up on myself. For seeing who I could be even when I couldn't see it. You did the work. I just stuck around. You did more than stick around. You drew a line. You told me to fight or walk away. Nobody had ever done that before. You needed someone to. I did. And you were brave enough to be that person even though it risked losing me." Ryan pulled her close. "Best risk I ever took." "Second best. First was asking me out in the first place." "Fair point." They kissed in the kitchen, surrounded by wedding debris, and Ryan thought about how this was the life he'd almost walked away from, how close he'd come to making peace with leaving because he didn't believe Victoria could change. But she had changed, they both had, not into perfect people with perfect lives, just into people who'd learned to choose each other even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. That was the real victory. Not the wedding or the adoption or the big romantic gestures, but the daily choice to show up and be present and fight for what mattered, instead of running toward what was easier. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Can I sleep with you guys tonight?" "Sure, Bug," Ryan said. She climbed into their bed, still wearing her flower girl dress because she'd refused to change. Victoria and Ryan got in on either side of her, and she fell back asleep almost immediately, snoring softly. "Our daughter snores," Victoria whispered. "She gets it from you." "I do not snore." "You absolutely snore. Lies and slander." They lay in the dark, smiling, and Ryan felt the kind of contentment that only comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. In the morning, they'd wake up and start their life as a married family. There would be breakfast to make and dishes to clean and regular Monday to face. Victoria would go to work and try to maintain boundaries. Ryan would go to the warehouse and move boxes. Emma would go to school and learn fractions. All the ordinary stuff of life that used to feel crushing, but now felt like grace. Because they'd learned the hard way that ordinary was actually extraordinary when you were living it with people you loved. That presence was more valuable than presence. That showing up was harder and more important than achieving. Victoria had spent years chasing success and feeling empty. Ryan had spent years surviving instead of living. Emma had spent years watching adults disappear into their own pain. But they'd all chosen differently, chosen each other, chosen presence over achievement, vulnerability over armor, messy reality over perfect performance. And in that choice, they'd found what they'd all been looking for without knowing how to name it. Family. Home. Love that didn't require earning or performing or proving, just love that existed because they kept showing up for each other, day after ordinary day, building a life from all the small moments they used to let slip past unnoticed. That was the thing about almost losing everything. It taught you to hold the good stuff tighter, to notice the pancakes and the homework help, and the person who chose to stay even when leaving would have been easier. Ryan lay in bed listening to his wife and daughter breathe, and thought about that morning when Victoria had stood in the kitchen and said she could replace him in 24 hours. How young and scared and defended she'd been then. How much courage it had taken for her to lower those defenses and risk wanting something she couldn't control. She'd been wrong about replacing him. Not because he was irreplaceable, everyone was, but because replacement missed the entire point. Love wasn't about finding someone who checked all the boxes. It was about finding someone worth fighting for even when the boxes remained unchecked. Someone worth changing for. Worth showing up for. Worth choosing over and over even when choosing them meant choosing discomfort. Victoria had learned that. Ryan had learned that. And together they'd built something that almost didn't exist because they'd both been too afraid to reach for it. But they had reached for it, had fought for it, had refused to let fear win. And now here they were. A single dad and a billionaire CEO and a 7-year-old girl who'd brought them together. A family that shouldn't have worked on paper but did in reality because they'd all decided it was worth the effort. Outside the window, Seattle rain started again. The familiar sound Ryan had woken to for years. But it sounded different now. Not lonely, not empty. Just rain on a roof over a family sleeping peacefully inside. He closed his eyes and let himself drift off, holding tight to the people he'd almost lost and found again. The ordinary miracle of another day with them stretching ahead. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, that was more than enough. It was everything.